To start off, thanks very much for coming. But my first question is on your name, which you can see behind you. So how best can I pronounce it?
Sapthre. The last name of my uncle is Sapthre. He's the owner of the business. It's Kevin Sapthre. So we decided to take the maple products end of it and sap and a tree and kind of make it into the name. So that's where it became Sapthre. So it's kind of like sap tree if you were to really try to pronounce it hard, but it kind of flows a little smoother with Sapthre. Sapthre Maple Products.
Yeah. There was definitely something interesting about it. I wasn't sure if it was in a different language, but that sounds very interesting. So I was wondering, could you give us some insight into running a maple product business? What kind of problems do you normally encounter? Is it highly seasonal, like it would suggest to be?
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. It is highly seasonal. We have to get our harvest in the spring, and well, depending on the spring weather, it can differ in many different ways. I believe 2 or 3 years ago, we started in the 9th of February, and since then, we usually start about 9th of March or second week in March, somewhere right in there. So
Mhm.
we've had really early years. We've had later years too. So it's all on the demand of the weather. Once those trees start to thaw, though, it's go time. So typically our season runs on for about 2 months. This year it went for only a month, but we had the same yield as always. So it was an extremely busy month that we ran this year.
Yeah, have you experienced dramatic fluctuations year to year? Has there been a trend with global warming, or has your business largely remained the same? Yeah.
So in terms of yield, it's been generally the same. In terms of global warming and different things like that, it's really tough with the maple syrup thing. Like I said, some years it's 2 months, some years it's a month, some years it's 3 months, some
Mhm.
years we start in February, some years we start in April. So yield wise, we've been about the same. But in terms of, raw product coming in sap, we've been anywhere from 40,000 to 25,000. We end up yielding one way or another the same amount of syrup due to the sugar content in the sap that we get coming in.
And so I'll move on to the coronavirus in a second, but can you just briefly explain how the process of extracting maple syrup works?
Yeah. Yeah, no. So we have a 19-acre woods. We have 2,400 taps on a vacuum line system. There's 7 miles of pipeline out there. So basically, those 7 miles of pipe, they vacuum all into one big tank. From there, we haul what's out of the woods back to our manufacturing facility. From there, we start by going through a reverse osmosis machine, taking out most of the water out of the raw sap. That brings the sugar content to about 20 bricks, which is not exactly percent, but it's pretty close. So we'll usually start at about anywhere from 1.5 to 3.5 bricks. And then we usually bring it up to 20 bricks of sugar. And then our final maple syrup ends up being at about 66 bricks. So after the reverse osmosis machine, it'll go into the cooker where we boil off the rest of the water. Um, and from there, it basically goes from the cooker either into large drums to be bottled later, or at the start of the season, we like to get the really fresh stuff out to a lot of our retailers. And so we use that to basically bottle right away, straight out of the cooker.
hmm And so how many people are involved in your operation?
So typically, well, it really depends. When we first start out and the year first starts, we need probably a good 7 people working for us. Just getting all the pipelines set up, line restretched, everything, all the pumps set up, maintenance, stuff like that. After that, we typically run average. We usually cook down in the evening towards the end of the day when she starts to freeze again, and we have 2 to 3 people there, depending on what's going on. If we're doing a lot of bottling and it's going fast, like a year we had this year where we're cooking down 3,300 gallons of sap a day, we typically end up with closer to 4 or 5 people.
Mm. And so I know, especially in Minnesota, a lot of people in the meatpacking industry have really been vectors for the coronavirus. And I was talking to Representative Hagedorn of Minnesota, who was explaining all the difficulties there. Have you experienced any difficulties with your staff of treatment and your procedures?
So luckily, we have not had any exposures or anything like that in terms of coronavirus. Um, all of our staff, we have our day jobs. Nobody was exposed at their day jobs. And then we came back and we came to kind of the same 5 to 7 people. We all came back at the end of the day and worked together. So it wasn't like we were having like different staff coming in like each week or anything like that. So there wasn't a high chance for exposure, I would say. But yeah, we did not face any troubles in terms of that. We were pretty fortunate, and we did have a few family members get tested and nothing came back positive. So
That's great. And so could you also just explain briefly what your product line looked like before the pandemic? Do you sell online? Do you sell in stores? How does it work?
So yeah, we kind of been talking about the maple syrup part of it the whole time. As you can see in the background, Sapthre Maple Products. So we do more than just syrup now. We're FDA certified, and we are actually certified through the TTB, which is the Federal Board for Alcohol, along with the Department of Public Safety for Minnesota, to make spirits. So we make maple spirits also, along with some food grade products like maple cream, maple butter, different things like that. So prior to, I guess, COVID, we were just selling our syrup. We're just about to transition to getting our spirits end of it up and going. We just got all of our licensures and approvals for stuff like that. So we're just selling that in stores. And then COVID happened, and we had our first few batches of what I'm going to call whiskey ready to be barreled up and become a finished product. Well, we got an email. This was on a Friday. We finished stilling. We got an email on Saturday saying that the FDA is allowing us to make hand sanitizer. So we kind of shifted gears quite a bit. I thought it was a ridiculous thing. When it first got brought up to me, they're like, yeah, we're going to be making hand sanitizer. I'm like, no, we're not. Well, we ended up actually going through with it, and it's expanded our business in more ways than I kind of expected it to. For a lot of people, COVID has been a very unfortunate event, and the pandemic has affected them in negative ways. But I can see some positive ways that our business has grown with that. We've moved a lot of our sales online now. So we do have our own website, and we have our own, we sell on like Etsy and Facebook and different things like that now. So we shifted to online, and then we also shifted our product line to the sanitizer end of it. And that involved so much. There was, the FDA was allowing us to do that, but now we're dealing with like a drug grade product. So we have to get registered drug grade through the FDA. We went through and did that. The next problem we ran into was the bottles. The whole nation is looking for bottles to make hand sanitizer, these different things. And I could not find bottles to save my life. So I ended up calling around. I had a couple of suppliers for maple syrup and stuff like that, and basically ended up going all the way to Milwaukee, which from our southeastern Minnesota is about 5 to 6 hours. And I did that 3 times in 1 week because we sold more hand sanitizer than I could have believed in 1 week than I would have ever expected. So in our first, I think, 3 or 4 days, we went through 9,000 bottles, which I returned to Milwaukee to get 10,000 more. And then I returned one more time to get some caps for some other bottles that we had delivered to us also. So it was been a challenge kind of following the chain of different things that are needed, but fortunately I have good people I work with in terms of like labeling and stuff like that we got all that taken care of.
And so can you elaborate a bit on the decision to start selling hand sanitizer? Did you have to invest in additional equipment or just reuse the equipment you already had for maple syrup production?
So yeah, we already had the still and everything like that for the distilled spirits, a beverage, spirits, on the end of it, and that basically made the alcohol for the sanitizer. In terms of equipment, we kind of adapted what we had in terms of maple syrup and bottling and all sorts of things like that to basically acquire what we needed to make this hand sanitizer. There's different, we have like graduated cylinders and different things like that we use for syrup and to test sugar and hydrometers and stuff like that. I would have never guessed we would have used any of that to make hand sanitizer, but it took a lot of precise measuring and different things like that. So we didn't invest in a ton of new equipment. There were a few things. There was a pump that we bought to move the alcohol and measure it better. It's an electronic pump. We bought something like that. And there was some drums and stuff that we had to buy. But other than that, we were pretty fortunate and used what we had to adapt to making hand sanitizer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so what percent of your operations do you think are divided up into hand sanitizer as opposed to maple products and maple syrup right now?
As of right now, so things have slowed down a good amount for us now. We're sitting in the middle of July.
Mm-hmm.
I would say right now we've moved back to the spirits end of it, and that's just because during the time of COVID and everything like that, we had so much downtime, you can't really do anything else. So all we did was stockpile hand sanitizer. Like I said, we had tens of thousands of bottles. We had thousands of gallons that we have bottled, and it's one of those things that we hit hard, and we hit really hard at the right time. And I've supplied pharmacies and different stores and stuff like that, and it's been tremendous the support we've had. We've tried to support our local communities and stuff like that. That's kind of where the idea first came about. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, from there on out, it's starting to go back to normal, at least now. But at the time when we were making the hand sanitizer, it was almost 100% of our time. We were done making syrup for the year. Like I said, we had a short season, just a month this year, but we kind of transitioned straight into sanitizer, and it just took off.
Mm-hmm. And so when most people think of hand sanitizer, they think of small, personal use bottles, but you're talking about gallons here. So are you supplying mainly to businesses instead of individual consumers?
So there's a little bit of both. These smaller bottles that I'm talking about, the 9,000, 10,000 quantity. We had 2-ounce, we've had 4-ounce, we've had some smaller personal bottles, and that was our initial goal. I would have never thought we would have sold it in gallons either. But our initial goal was to help out our local communities and staying safe. And, local people like Hormel Foods in Austin, stuff like that. We donated over $9,000 worth of hand sanitizer to them. So that was our initial thought. And then I had a few businesses reach out, stating that they would want like a gallon size, to use for customers and their employees and stuff like that. So we kind of just tinkered with it a little bit. We're like, okay, we'll order 100-gallon jugs and we'll try it that way. Well, as more people heard about it, word of mouth was our biggest advertising we needed. And we ended up selling several pallets of gallon jugs. So we've tried to adapt to that, and just recently, we found things like pumps and stuff to make it more convenient to use the gallons. So it's been a little bit of hodgepodge of everything, but we've been adapting well, I feel like, and it's been quite the experience.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned you're selling on your website and on Facebook, but are you doing any marketing on Facebook or Google, or how do people learn about you if not word of mouth?
Well, our number one is word of mouth, but yeah, we have done a little bit of marketing through Facebook. We've had, like I mentioned, we donated $9,000 worth of sanitizer to Hormel Foods in Austin, and we posted that on Facebook with our flyer and stuff like that, and we just paid a little bit of money for Facebook to market it for us, and it blew up. A lot of people shared it, commented, liked it. If you look at the time when we did that, our Etsy and Facebook and our website, it just went through the roof. People were reaching out like crazy, hearing about the product and stuff like that. So in terms of going out there and marketing that, I have our regular customers for maple syrup and stuff like that I tried to keep healthy and I reached out to some other people, Sterling Pharmacy, based out of Austin. I have been their main supplier since COVID started for hand sanitizer. Um, so that was a family friend that we talked to, and he was all for it. There's like PepsiCo out of Rochester, where we supplied them with all their hand sanitizer during COVID. Like I said, Hormel Foods. So we've reached out to some bigger businesses, but we also, our thought was the smaller businesses in our local area. So Heimer Foods here in Adams, our local lumber yard, local liquor stores, stuff like that. We tried to supply, and I'm a volunteer firefighter and volunteer EMT also on the ambulance, and we donated to our local fire department ambulance along with all law enforcement in our county to try to keep them safe. So a lot of donations went into it to kind of really back our idea of the whole hand sanitizer business. But from that, it's been, I guess, one of our bigger marketing strategies is just word of mouth. Oh, hey, he gave this kind of thing. So it's been good.
Mm-hmm. And so, growing up in Minnesota, there's a wide presence of maple syrup and maple products companies here. Do you know of any other companies that have tried to do what you do with hand sanitizer on such an industrial scale?
So I won't say on the maple end of it, no, because a lot of the maple products companies, they don't really deal with the spirits end of it. I don't really hear of that a whole lot, but I will say on the spirits end of it, I have good friends in Harmony and different things like that. They took advantage of this, different distilleries, ethanol plants, different things like that. They really, when this came out, they went all for it. And, we've worked side by side on a couple of jobs with some of these guys, and I'm glad we could. There's some offers that were just too big. We had to turn down. So like Best Buy wanted to buy 80,000 units of hand sanitizer,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just impossible. We didn't have the workforce to do it. Like I said, we didn't want to bring new people in to start working and stuff like that. And supplies were slim. So we were just trying to keep our locals happy was the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now to transition to talk about your whiskey and your spirit production. A lot of liquor stores are doing pretty well during the pandemic, but how are you going to get yourself into a liquor store, or if that's not your plan, like how are you planning to sell your spirits?
So we've had a lot of people reach out. We are one of the only people that I've ever heard of that make a spirit or a whiskey, whatever you want to call it, directly from maple syrup. And that's just because of the cost of maple syrup is incredibly high. If you were to buy it in bulk and try to make spirits out of it, it wouldn't be cost effective. So we have the raw product, so we're gonna do it. We have the flavors getting there. We're developing this all as we go, but it's been a ride, and we do have liquor stores that have reached out and just heard of maple based product. It's not a grain based liquor or anything like that, so it's different, and I think that's going to catch a lot of people's eyes when it comes to when we really start marketing the spirits end of it. We will do some tastings and stuff like that, and some liquor stores in Austin and Rochester, and a lot of the local people in our town have been interested in it, just from word of mouth. So we will see how it goes from there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so my final question is just kind of the future of your business. Do you see a long-term need for things like hand sanitizer, especially seeing as we don't know when this pandemic is going to end? And do you see your business increasingly transitioning towards that, or where do you see your business going?
So our business is going to grow on all ends, I feel like. Our spirits end is the part that we're trying to push for right now. So we're trying to get that up and going. That's what I've been working on all morning and afternoon. So we're really trying to push that right now. Hand sanitizer, we've talked about it as our team that we work with. And I think it's something we're going to continue regardless of pandemic or not. It's something that we did. And, even if it's just to have a souvenir someday to say, hey, these guys made hand sanitizer, it'd be a cool story to tell, someday down the road, or, even if I have children someday, just to tell them the story of how we went from making maple syrup to hand sanitizer. It seems like the wildest transition, but it's definitely an interesting story. So we're definitely working with the FDA right now to get our drug registration completed and all of our inspections done. So once we get done with that, we're just going to continue to grow, and hand sanitizer, liquor, maple products, all of it.
Okay, well, thanks very much for taking the time today to speak. I'm sure you're a very busy guy.
You bet. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's great to hear, and love to inform the public about kind of how we've done now.
For sure.